and welcome to Vlogmas Day 2. I am picking up exactly where I left off yesterday with this blouse right here. It is 1 o'clock in the afternoon at the moment. I had a very productive morning with my social worker. For context, I am autistic and I have a social worker who comes and visits me every single week to help me because I need it very desperately. And this week is the first time that we actually converted my list of tasks to a time schedule. It's been mostly just survival mode the past couple of weeks just because of a ton of bad stuff that has been happening. So it's really nice to see that I'm progressing to an actual time schedule and trying to plan realistically. So I'm very excited for that. Having said that, I have about a little less than 2 hours to work on this piece right now before I have to go and pack up the orders that I received in the last couple of days. Some people ordered some vintage buttons and some secondhand yarn and a knitting pattern booklet. So I'm going to pack that up and then I'm going to the post office. And then after the post office, I'm going back to working on this blouse, and then hopefully it'll be done and then I can think of something else to work on. I still have this 1950s pink summer dress that I've been working on. Basically everything has been knit and crocheted. I just need to add the closures and some pearls. I need to embroider them. And then that's basically done. So I think I would like to do that, and then maybe if I have time I can work on this, or maybe I can even try working on a new intarsia piece that has been stuck in my mind. Yeah, okay, so it's going to be the same as yesterday. Again, 25 minutes of work, 5 minutes of just standing up, and then getting back to everything. I think the first thing I'll be doing is just seaming up the sides. It's the most. Why do I keep saying maced? It's the most straightforward place to continue. And then after that, I will add the sleeves. And then finally, I will be working on the scarf. Yeah, okay. Time to get started. Okay, I have seamed up the sides and it took about an hour, something like that. Yes, I had made a mistake. I had forgotten that I actually added length to the front for better accommodation of the bust. I added 6 rows, something like that, about 1.5 centimeters I added, and it was supposed to get eased in at this section, and I didn't do it. And then I noticed that I had quite a bit of rows left extra when I was heading towards the top, so I had to rip that out a bit. And then I figured I'd just try it from scratch on the other side and then use some clips to make sure that I'm on track with seaming all of the pieces in the correct position, so to speak. So that's done now. I have still half an hour before I have to package things, so I think I'm going to try and set in one of the sleeves. I have the clips that I'm going to use for that. I'm just going to plan out the entire sleeve and then start at the top with the gathers and then work my way back to the bottom. Progress so far is I have done the gathers at the top. It wasn't too hard, and also because before casting off I knit a bunch of these stitches, the top stitches, I knit them together. That helped a lot with getting the gathers nice. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to do this. I'm gonna have a break now. I have to do the packages, then I'll come back and I'll do the gathers on the other side just to make sure that they look similar, and then I am going to add the bow tie. I don't know, I don't think I'll be able to finish it today, but definitely made a lot of progress. Okay, I've got orders with these buttons. One is a card, so someone purchased this entire card, and then I have these that still need to be taken off of the card. So I'm going to use some tape. Now I'm making a TikTok about the packaging, but I just want to show what is all going in here. It's nothing too special because it's just some buttons, of course. I have just a regular white ass box, but something that I'm really proud of that I sourced are these Ziploc bags. They are biodegradable, so that's really cool. And I have thank you cards. It says at the back, thank you for purchasing your buttons from Fields Atelier. And this is part of an acrylic painting that I made. So I printed the thank yous and then I painted on the page, and then I took my paper cutter and I cut them into these small thank you cards. So I'm gonna take 2 of them and then put those in the boxes. Okay, I'm gonna film the TikTok. Oh yeah, and someone is going to, well, someone purchased yarn as well, and so I had to get a bigger box to ensure that the yarn had enough space and that it would not get wet either. So I have the box here, and then I have this, yes, biodegradable again packaging. It's a bit more expensive, but I think that it's worth it. Okay, yes, it's time to get started. I'm back from the post office. I looked at one of the button cards and found that there was a bit of discoloration due to just the sheer age of these buttons. And so half of the buttons were light gray and half were dark gray. So I ended up having to send the customer an email asking if they are okay with me just sending everything so that they can just choose what they want, and also offered some of these cute pearl buttons as an apology. But I'm home. I have done what I could do, so I'm checking that off. I'm still on schedule, kind of. I spent some time on social media, which I had also planned for later, so I'll take half an hour off from that and just continue with the blouse. Yeah, there's really not that much to it. Is there anything else I want to say? I think I would like to actually look into bust darts today. I think I would like to do so. I found this pass-up book. I bought something off of marketplace, the Dutch marketplace online, and it included this pass-up knitting book about how to create clothing, and there they are talking about how to account for fullness around the chest and also around the belly, and I want to have a closer look at that. And a while back, I think it's almost a year now, I sent myself an email about bust darts. When did I send this to myself? Oof, it's been more than a year. Yeah, I need to have a look at that. Okay. Yeah, so this and then bust darts. Then if I've learned something interesting, I will talk about that later on. 1, 2, 3. On the second day of Vlogmas, Seiji gave to me a 1940s pattern. Woo! From Stitchcraft, March 1947. Yes, this one in particular. It's up on my Ko-fi. So yeah, that's for free. That's my gift to you for today. If you're enjoying the vlog and you'd like to support my channel, my endeavors, you can grab me a slice of cake, some tea, maybe some candy. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Bye. I have seamed everything up. I think it's looking quite nice. I'm very excited to block it and see how it relaxes once I've done that. I have also clipped the bow tie to the body. So I'm going to take it off of the mannequin and then I'm going to be sewing it. So that shouldn't be all that hard. Yes, so there is, like I don't know if I mentioned this before, but there is a height difference just because one side needs more scarf. Let me try this again. I messed this up the last time. Okay, I have as a matter of fact, sorted it. I adjusted the length just to make this one slightly longer. I would say give or take 4 centimeters. Let me get this out. No, I was way off. 6 centimeters, which is about 2¼ of an inch, 2/8, something like that. But I think I have now internalized how to tie it. I always have to watch a YouTube video, but today I didn't, so that shows some progress. So first what we do is we cross them, and we take the shortest section and we pull it up, and basically we're just making a knot. Yes, and then we shape this in the form of a bow. Yes, we have the bow here and the loose part here. Then we take the long section and we go up and under, like so. So it's already kind of looking like half of a bow tie. We pull a bit on it, and then you'll just have to trust me on this. There's a hole here. There's a hole here where you put the tie. So let me just do that for myself, just really quickly, to show that it actually works. Well, I'm not really doing a tutorial or anything, but like this. Oh, oops. Ta-da! This is how it looks. I'm happy with it. Okay, so the distribution has been confirmed. Now all that is left is to seam. I have about an hour left before I have to do my other duties. I'm gonna give myself an extra hour today just to make this podcast, just to make this vlog a bit more interesting, because it has, I think, as far as I can remember, it's mostly just been me seaming up this piece right here, and I can recognize that that might not be the most interesting thing to look at. So I was actually thinking of adding a side project to this Vlogmas series, and that side project is making a coat from the 1930s, but Japanese edition, because I know that patterns from the 1930s are definitely in the public domain. So I have here actually one of the first patterns that I ever purchased that was a vintage Japanese one from the 1930s. I paid way more for this than I should have, I think. But I got it when I was still studying in Japan. And it's this lovely coat right here. So I have looked a bit at the pattern. The pattern is here at the back. And I do have to say, it is quite wild just to see the evolution of knitting patterns from the 1930s in Japan to the 1950s. I don't know too much about exactly, I should say, the genesis of Japanese knitting culture, but I have to imagine that it originated from when, I think his name was Matthew Perry. No, that's the actor, right? some naval officer named Perry from the United States of America invaded Japan in 1883, or at least around that time, at the end of the 19th century. He didn't invade, but he forced Japan to open itself up to the rest of the world. At the time, I believe they were only just doing trade with the Netherlands and perhaps Portugal, I'm not too sure, but definitely the Netherlands. And he came with his fleet and he just said, guys, you gotta open up. So that's when there was an influx of Western culture, and with that, I believe, came knitting as well. So the earliest knitting pattern booklets that I've been able to find have been from the 1930s, so I don't know if it just took a couple of decades for it to get really popularized. But yeah, this is one of the earlier ones, and I bought this separate pattern, but actually it's part of a kind of, I don't know, it's not a book, but it's a folder. You would purchase the folder and then you had these loose pieces here with illustrations on the front, and on the back you had the explanations. Now the interesting thing as well about this is that for this pattern there is more than one entire page of instructions, which is quite wild because Japanese patterns in the 50s usually require half a page max, if that. So I've seen quarter of a page previously. So I'm excited to go through this and see what I can understand just by using Google Translate and my own knowledge of Japanese and knitting. And I will try and talk my way through the pattern, so to speak. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna do that after I've done this, and then I'm wrapping this vlog up for today. Hopefully it'll be a bit entertaining. I know a couple of people have asked me to show how I how I work with patterns. Okay, I think it's time to get back to seaming. The seaming is done. It has been attached. Woo! Okay. So what's left is crochet and sewing in the label and weaving in the ends. But other than that, it's done. Oh my gosh, I did that. I'm really happy. I've been focusing so much on finishing it, not actively realizing that it's almost done, and I've finished another piece. I don't know if that makes any sense, but this one is going back onto the mannequin. Okay, it's the next morning and I have just fired up my iPad and I've scanned the pattern so that I can have a look and do some initial reconnaissance. I don't know. To do some initial research on this pattern. I had a quick glance and it's from the 30s, and I actually have never translated anything that far back. I think max it must have been the late 40s, and I'm already noticing a couple of changes. In any case, I had initially thought that this pattern was for a woman, but looking at the picture again, this is actually a schoolgirl. She has schoolgirl style hair as well. And if you read the title is Otonashi Muki no 小学生用セーター. So sweater for a modest schoolgirl, something like that, something in that ballpark, or a modest sweater for a schoolgirl. I think that's it, a modest sweater for a schoolgirl. Okay, so the way I like to start, usually I like to start off with my own size. My bust circumference and waist are very similar to the block that I have. So basically I just choose the block size that is closest to my own size so that I can at the very least model the piece. And since it's for a schoolgirl, I think I need to do some grading. But that's not really an issue. One thing I have noticed is that the pattern doesn't start by telling you the gauge. And that's a bit of, well, it's not a huge issue, but it would have been nice to figure that out. Sometimes the patterns tell you the gauge, sometimes it's not there and you have to kind of figure out what it is from the pictures. The pattern first starts by telling the order in which the piece needs to get knit, and that's not something I usually would look at because definitely for machine knitting you're going to have to change the order anyway to make it more convenient, or at least that's what I like to do for myself. But yes, there is a lot of text, far more than there would generally be with a 1940s or 50s pattern from Japan. So there's a section that explains the back, then a section for the top of the front, the lower part of the front, the sleeves, the collar, and then some more stuff. And then finally there's a section on how to finish the piece. I think I'm just going to kind of freestyle and use my own knowledge and just refer to the picture a bit. First off, I have to kind of gauge what the amount of positive ease is, because it does look like there is some amount of positive ease. I personally would go for about 5 centimeters. So let's just write positive ease 5 centimeters. I think that would be good. It feels modest. Okay, so 5 centimeters of positive ease. And so now I actually will go and refer to the pictures or the drawings that they have. Okay, so the drawings help a lot. There's also some explanation there as well. So even just looking at the drawings will get you quite far. So first what we see is that you cast on 100 stitches, okay, at the bottom, and you do the ribbing. The ribbing, it says on the left that it's 1 by 1 rib, and there are some characters that state these are, I think these are very archaic because I have never seen this be described like this, but it looks like it's saying that it's 45 centimeters. No, 45 rows. You have to knit 40. I think they might be saying knit 45 rows. Okay, but there's no actual measurement of any mention of centimeters, but it does seem that it's quite a lot. However, if we look at the top part, you'll see this text in the middle, and it says meriyasu ami, which means stockinette stitch. we're looking at the back of the piece, by the way. That's usually the easiest place to start off with, because there's not that much shaping as compared to, for instance, the front side. Okay, and we see before the arm shaping, we see those characters again, and it says the same again, 45 rows, and this next to it, it says 17 centimeters. And then we have the armhole shaping, and there we see the same characters again, or the same, well, it's not the same characters, but it seems to be saying 40 rows, and then it says 15.2 centimeters. So if this really is other rows, that would mean that we could calculate the gauge, the row gauge at the very least, or just confirm that what that section is saying, the 47, the 45 rows, if that's actually rows, if that makes any sense. So the bottom part says 45 rows would make up 17, maybe I'll just write it down. It said 45 rows equals 17 centimeters. So if I were to get the row gauge from that, I would just do 45 divided by 1.7. And so that would be 26.5 rows in 10 centimeters, or 4 inches. So then you have the armhole shaping section, and that says 40 rows is supposedly 15.2 centimeters. So running that through says, if we do 40 divided by 1.52, we get 26.31, which is pretty close. The 26.5 was actually rounded up from, yeah, if we look at it with an extra, how would I say this, an extra number, decimal? No, I don't think that's right. If we look at it more precisely, it's 26.47, 26.31. So it does seem that this is going to be the row gauge, but that doesn't matter because I don't even know what the row gauge or stitch gauge of my yarn is. I just kind of need to know what the, I just need to kind of know a bit the proportions, so to speak, so that I need cold hard numbers is what I need. Okay, so yes, I don't know if, so now I know that the ribbing, which the ribbing has the same amount of rows as the stockinette stitch section of the body. So it should be around 16 centimeters, assuming that you would go down a couple of needles to get the ribbing looking nice and neat. So I would say that the ribbing would be about, I'd say 15 centimeters seems quite nice to have for the ribbing. Now I don't know if once switching from the rib section to the stockinette stitch section, if there are any increases. It doesn't really say, but I can go, it also doesn't say how many stitches there are in the body, but it says up top the how would I say, the distribution of the shoulders and the neck section. So it's 28, 28, 28. So 28 times 3, what's that? I can do that. I think it's 84. Let me just check. I might not. Yeah, okay, it's 84. So it's 84 stitches. And so that means that if nothing was increased at the body, that would mean that the armhole shaping would have had 8 stitches on each side, because 100 minus 84 is 16. Okay, so there's an arrow pointing towards the armhole on the left hand side, and it says basically ichidan oki ichime herashi hachikai. I don't think I'm using the correct pronunciation, or yeah, the pronunciation of the characters, but it just means every other row you decrease 1 stitch, and you do that 8 times. So that means that the armhole shaping is an 8 stitch decrease on each side, which means 8 times 2 is 16. Okay, so we are back to 100. So that means that there are no decreases going from ribs to the main body. So there's also no shaping whatsoever. So it's basically just straight. Okay. Now that I know that, okay, so I will take my block, and my block will have 85 centimeters at the bust, so that's about 3 centimeters larger than mine. And then at the waist has, let's see, what does it have? The waist is 70 centimeters, so that's about, the waist doesn't even matter actually, it's all about the bust at this point, because there's no shaping in the body, so that makes it actually rather easy. And then for the armhole depth, I am just going to add, since it's a bit looser, it's not that fitted, I am going to add 2 centimeters to the general armhole depth. So I'm going to choose an armhole depth of 16.5 centimeters. So the original armhole depth of my block is 14.5 centimeters. I'm just going to keep on talking in centimeters, because converting constantly to inches is a bit of a hassle on the fly. But then what are some other important measurements to make? What else would I need? I would need my cross front section, because it does seem to be a, how did I say this? It does, well, looking at the piece, looking at the girl, it's quite hard to see if it's a drop shoulder or if it's a set in sleeve construction. Also because the measurements are not there, so I really have no idea, but there might be a chance that it's actually just a drop shoulder. But if we think about it, right, so this is again having to make some inference. So if we know that the row gauge is about 26 rows per 10 centimeters or 4 inches, we can kind of guess the stitch gauge. I'm not so good at this, so I'll just go to a website and just kind of see what type of yarn would give a row gauge of about 26 centimeters, 26 rows. My personal guess is that it would be an Aran weight yarn, which, no, maybe a DK weight. A DK weight yarn might be more suitable. Okay, so I looked at a couple of yarns online, and my guess would be that it's about a DK weight yarn, and so 20 stitches. So I think 20 stitches and 20 rows in a 10 centimeter square is what is kind of the ballpark we're working in. So if we take this tentative gauge and we calculate the cross front section of the piece, so after the armhole shaping, that would be, we had 84 stitches divided by 2. Ooh, yeah, that would get us to 42 centimeters in width, which is way, way, way wide for a schoolgirl. Yeah, that's really wide. So it's definitely a drop shoulder. It's definitely a drop shoulder. And if I'm looking at the piece, I think I can actually see where the drop ends. It looks like it ends here. But you know what? I don't want to make a drop shoulder. I think that it would actually look quite nice as a set-in sleeve. I think it would look nice like that. Okay, so how would I go about doing this? I would have to take my own cross front section, or yeah. Okay, so let's just say we'll take a cross front of 32 centimeters. Front. Okay. And the neck opening, if I were to use my tentative gauge, that would be about 14 centimeters. Let's just make that a bit smaller. I'll go for about 13 centimeters to make that just a bit tighter. I don't think it would be that huge of an issue. Just taking off 1 centimeter for the neck. Okay. So with all of this information, I can start actually creating the piece. So I am going to, what is actually a good length for this? It is a larger cardigan. I think maybe 50 centimeters. I think 50 centimeters would be quite good. I'm just kind of taking numbers from just experience, basically. I kind of know where things hit on an average body just from having knit so much or so many pieces the past year and just in the past. Okay, so say we have 50 centimeters of length. So then let's just start at the bust. So I was going to add 5 centimeters of positive ease. So that would make 90 centimeters for the entire piece. And so 45 centimeters for the bust. So if I draw a sweater here. Poorly drawn, but you kind of get the idea. So 45 here. Then the armhole depth is 16 and a half. And so what does that leave? Oh, yeah. So then we also have shoulder shaping. And usually that's about, give or take, 2 centimeters. Okay, so the entire length I said, right, was 50. Well, let me just change it to 48. Okay, so we have 48. So we take off the shoulder shaping, we remove the armhole depth, and we have 29 centimeters, 29 and a half. And so we're going to have to distribute that between the main body and the ribbing. In the example picture, it showed that the body was about 17 centimeters. So let's just go for 17 for the body. And then whatever is left, we just give to the ribbing. So that leaves ribbing of about 12 and a half centimeters. So a bit shorter than in the original, but that's okay. Okay, so now this is done. So the bottom half is done. We know the ribbing is 12 and a half centimeters. The body will be 17 centimeters. And then we do the armhole shaping and we take out a width that will ensure that the cross front section is 32 centimeters. So we have to subtract 32 from 45. So that gives 13 centimeters. So that means that the armhole shaping, because we have to do it on both sides, we have to divide it by 2, which is 6.5 centimeters. So we need to take out 6.5 centimeters from each side. Not going to look at the armhole shaping today because I don't have my own gauge. I still need to knit up a gauge swatch anyways. And then we had the neck section, which was already decided upon that would be 13. My bad. That would be 13. So we subtract 13 from 32. And then we divide it by 2. And that gives us 9.5 centimeters for each side for the shoulders. Okay. So that's how basically the back will be pretty straightforward. And then the front is going to be similar. I am having a look at it now. The way it's constructed is that you knit the back and then you bind off for the neck, and then you continue on the shoulder with the shoulders. I would preferably like to have a seam here at the top just to ensure stability, also because it's going to be a heavier fabric I'm going to be working with, or yarn. I'm going to be working with some Aran yarn. So I'm going to take it from the bottom up at the front. And I do see though, there is some shaping going on there due to the it has this front flap thing going on. Okay. How do I do this? I'm just having a look at the pictures, what the pictures are saying. I'm a bit too tired also to really go through the translation of things. Maybe I'll go through that afterwards, or if I hit a roadblock. But the way it seems to be constructed is that it doesn't tell you how far you should knit the body straight without any shaping. Now, what I can deduce from the pattern is that you have one side where you have this flap where you first knit, well, if you're going from the top to the bottom, where you knit a couple of rows straight. Yeah, you knit a couple of rows straight, about I think 3.8 centimeters straight, and then you start increasing for the overlap, and then you start decreasing again, and then you're past the armhole and you've reached basically the center. Yeah, you've reached the center of your piece. Yeah, the center here. So not the center in length, but the center in width. So you're starting here at the neck, you increase a lot, you go past the center, and you go then back to the center, and you have a 5-stitch garter edge, which is a pain in the ass on the machine, so I'm going to swap that out for crochet. Yes, okay, and then the other side you knit straight again for how many centimeters? Again, 3.8 centimeters. Then you increase again, and you increase until you are back to, you increase until you are back to the center of your piece. So that's 50 stitches, and then you cast on 5 stitches for garter stitch, just so that you can ensure that the overlap is clean. So you have this overlap, right? And then you have buttons, and those buttons need to go somewhere. So you need some extra couple of stitches that go past the center that the buttons can stay on, so that the piece looks all right. I hope that makes any sense. It's just kind of, you need some, they need the flaps need to overlap if you want buttons. So if everything goes into the center, you need to have more stitches on one side so that the buttons can rest there. Okay, so that's the shaping. So if I were to write that down roughly, you would have like 6.5 here. You kind of go like straight. Let me zoom in a bit. You go straight, you go in, and then you go out again, and then you are here at the center. Am I getting this right? When it goes back in, have to go back. Okay, wait, let me just do the outline first. So straight, okay, let's start over here. And we have the shoulder, armhole shaping, go straight down, ribbing. Let's say that this is the center. So the way it goes, it's like it goes straight down, then it increases past the center, and then it goes back in. Oh, yeah, it goes back in like this. That's the shaping. And so you would have 6.5 centimeters here, 2 here, 16.5 here, 17 here, and then 12.5 here, and then 45 divided by 2 is 27.5, I think. 27.5. Yeah, so it goes like this. And then you have this piece like this, that is the garter stitch edge. And then for the other side, you have something similar. Let's draw this. Ooh, that was a rough ribbed edge. Okay. Here, 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 12.5, 17, 16.5, and then 2. And then it goes, how does it go? It goes straight down, and then goes straight down, and then it goes up to the middle, almost to the center. Let me put the center here. Center. This is also the center line, and then you cast on a couple of stitches, and then you have, let's put this like this, garter stitch like this, 6.5. Yes. Yes. You know what? Scrap that. I am going to do the neckline. I'm just trying to keep, well, no, I'm keeping the 13. I just need to trust myself. Okay. So we have the base pieces done, kind of. So now really the best thing to do is to create a gauge swatch with some yarn. I have this yarn here from Spain, I believe, is 100% merino wool. I think it would make a lovely sweater. I'm going to take that and make a swatch. But this is everything, I think, for today's vlog. Yes, this is everything for today's vlog. And watch tomorrow, hopefully, the next one where I continue also on the blue bow tie blouse, because that's what I'm going to do right now. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon in another video. Bye bye.